Hi guys and girls on YouTube, and welcome to my channel. Not an electronics related video this week, I'm afraid. This is going to be a car video, and I've had a look on the internet and a lot of people seem to have this problem, but nobody seems to come up for a definitive cure for it. Now we are of course talking Fiat Punto and water leaking into the boot, a very common fault. Now I've got this same problem on both of my cars. I've had it for quite a while, but the weather's getting a little bit warmer. I've made some space so I can drive inside, and now we're going to have a look at it. Now I think the problem why people can't seem to get their head round it is because there's 4 different places that water can be leaking into, and it can depend on a lot of various conditions, like which way the car's pointing, if it's pointing downhill, if it's pointing uphill, if it's leaning to the left, if it's leaning to the right, park somewhere, the wind conditions, which way the rain's blowing. There's so many different factors that can affect this problem, but I've had a good look round. I think I found it, and I found a fundamental problem with the actual design of the car anyway. So let's pick the camera up and we'll walk round to the car and I'll show you the problem. Right, so here we go. I've got the car inside. As you can see, I've made a bit of space to drive it in. There we go, 2007 Fiat Punto. So quite often what you'll find is in the morning you've got a lot of condensation build up in your car. Now if we go into the boot here, I've taken the spare wheel out. What happens is you get water running in here, and it runs down this channel down here, and the only way out, depending if the car's leaning left or right, the possible way out is down here, through the back, under the back passenger seats into the passenger floor, or sometimes the water will run over here and it fills up the wheel well. And if you look on that side, I'll lift that up, there's another channel under there, and that runs water onto that side. Now in this car I've got water on both of these sides. It's not just on one side. So if we look at the rear light here, the indicator light, you can see I've got condensation inside the rear light. Now don't automatically assume that that is because the light isn't sealed and the water's getting in there. That condensation could very well be coming from inside the car itself and not actually coming from the light at all, even though it could be the light. So let's look at all the different possibilities and I'll show you around. So the first possibility is water coming under this seal from the aerial. Now that'd be easy fix, you just fit a new aerial, you just have to remove the roof lining and this just bolts on. But in my case I don't think that is the problem, so I'm going to discount that for now, because you'd see water on the roof lining, it has stained the roof lining. So for now that's one place it could be coming in, but as you can see the seal's in good condition. They usually perish and then it needs changing. This is in good condition, so we'll discount that for now. So the second place is obviously the rear light, and the seals on these are not that good. We'll take one out and we'll have a look at the rear light later, but that both rear lights, that is not the immediate cause for concern. So the first thing we need to do is we need to pull this rubber up here. I've already done this, and you need to clean out any dirt or leaves or muddy bits or debris in that channel there. That's very important. As you can see, that's already clean, that's already been done, and you'll see why any debris in there is important in a minute. Right, so the next thing to do is to gently pull off this rubber that forms the seal for the boot, like so. Right, so having pulled up this rubber seal, you'll see that where the two panels are welded together, they do have some sort of sealant in, but it's very, very patchy. As you can see, there's some missing there. Now if we follow this along to around where the corner is, you'll see just there's a whacking great big gap. There's no sealant in there at all, and that's why if you get any debris on there, that will cause the water to rise up and it'll run down the back of here, and the only place it can go realistically is straight down that big hole. Let's get the camera into there. Now to give you an idea, a Stanley knife blade, and that goes right into that gap. There is no sealant in there at all, so any water there, that's the first place it's going to come out in the boot. Now there's one of these gaps with no sealant in on the other side as well, so that's your next port of call. All these panels here where they're welded together, they all want sealing up properly. Right, now the next item of concern is the welding of the panels. Now I've just got these two bits of aluminium just to demonstrate. If you were welding these together, you'd have that one there and you'd put that one over the top. So any water running down here would just run off down the bottom panel. Now what Fiat have done, they've got this the other way around. They've put that one at the back like that. So you can see now any water running down here is going to run down the back of this panel. If there's any slight gap there in the welding where my finger is, the water's going to go straight down there and into the back of your car. So let's take a look at that next. So the next item relates to this seam sealer here. Now as you can see, it's cracking and dropping off. That there is actually the undercoat, which would have had seam sealer on it, dropped off, and this is what I was talking about, the panel welding. If you look at that, because of the way it's welded, any water running down there is going to run into that gap there. You can see I've got this tool down that hole, so straight away, because the actual seam sealer here has failed and it's dropped off, the water running down there now will go straight into that hole and into the boot, and it'll probably come out in exactly the same place as water running down this great big hole will. So what we need to do is we need to seal up not just the bits you can see. I'm going to take the rubber off. See, there's another gap there. I'm going to seal the whole of this lot, and also I'm going to have to take this seam sealer off, and we're going to put new seam sealer over, and I'll practice my painting skills then. So we just move up there, you can see, where's it gone? There's another big hole there. So I mean, these are small things, but they're all fundamental design errors. But before we do any more, let's just take a quick look at the backlight. So let's just take the backlight first. That's the seal for the backlight. Now you could have water running past this seal, in which case you will find, because I've got it on my other car, is these connectors where the light plugs in are actually corroded. So if they're not corroded, the chances are the water is not coming past this seal. But when we take that off, there is actually another seal that goes in there which is actually missing, so that could be faulty. But what I was saying before, just because you've got condensation in your lamps, it doesn't mean to say it's actually anything to do with the lamp. It could be condensation in the car, which is actually coming through this hole and going into the lamp itself through here. So it doesn't necessarily mean that this seal's faulty. Only, I would say, only if you've got rust on these pins, then you've got a problem with this seal. But as you can see, they're alright. So just to prove the point, that big hole there, if we pull the rubber off the other side, you can see is a whacking great hole down there that's not sealed up either, and also the seam sealer is failing here as well. Now at the top of the boot here, I don't actually know how the panels are lapped over here, but I would say the fact that this is deteriorating, it's a good idea to remove all of this and redo it all again. So that covers the 4 different places that water could be coming in. Now in mine, I don't think it's the lights, I don't think it's the aerial, I'm pretty sure it's coming in round these welding points where they've not been sealed and where the seam sealers actually failed and dropped off. So what I'm going to do now is stop the camera and we'll have a go at sealing it all up. Right, so that's one bit removed there. If you look at this bit I've not removed, you can see by the trace around here, that's where the sealant's actually shrunk, because originally it would have been over that grey line and it's been painted, and you can see where it's all crumbling away, and it's actually exposing the panel gaps now. So I'll carry on. I've done that bit. I've done a bit on the lights there, done that bit, done that bit, done that bit. This is going to take quite a while to do it properly, so we'll come back to it in a bit. Right, so as you can see, I've got all the old sealant out ready for resealing and repainting. I've taken the back light off and I'm just going to examine a couple more points. So I don't think for 1 minute water is running through there. I just get this gut feeling, but you've got a plastic peg there where the light fastens in, and that's water could be coming from behind there. It also could be coming from here where the backlight screws in. So what I've done is, to be 100% certain, I've taken all the panels out the back, so we can have a really good look round. And there are some clues here. Now, if you remember, I mentioned this big gap here. This would cause water to run around this panel, and if you see there, we've got a rust stain, so water has indeed come through there. And if we go around the back, you can also see just underneath, there's a hole under there to let water out, a drain. You can see there's a stain where water has run down there, so that has probably, or I would say almost certainly, come through this great big gap here. But what's more alarming, if we turn to the back of the car, you can see some very bad, looks like very bad factory welding there. We've got a rust stain there. Now that's worrying, because it's a long way from here and water doesn't travel sideways, it comes down. So that must have come from up above. And if we go up this panel, up to there, it's like double skin where the backlights are. So I don't think any water going in there would actually come out down here, because in the back light you can't tell from the camera, but if I put my finger in there, there's like another skin. So I've taken off this back panel here, and I found what could be the major source of the water. Now I'm just videoing this as we speak. I've not actually investigated yet, but this I don't know, shock absorber for the seat belt, that is absolutely sopping wet, and if I squeeze that, you can see how much water's on there. Now that can't be coming from the back light, and I'll tell you why. The hole for the back light is there, so if we trace that round, the back light would be somewhere here, and this is a lot higher up, and if we bend that back down there, you can see where water's run out there. Now that can only be coming from one place. It can only... Right, so the plot deepens. So if you look where the light is there, and I put my finger in this hole, I don't know if you can see, you can just see my finger moving there, but water cannot jump from that panel to this panel here. So we've almost certainly got water coming in somewhere from the roof. Now it still could be coming in from one of these panel joins. It could be coming in from the aerial, or it might be coming in from somewhere under there. So I've got to carry on looking at this, and we might end up taking the aerial off as well. But the strange thing is, if we pull the roof lining down, I don't know if you can see it, there's like a rubber thing there. That's not wet at all. So you wouldn't have thought it was coming from the aerial, but definitely coming from up there somewhere. Right, so if I've got the back door open now. If you photograph it through the back door, you can see there, that's where the light goes in, and that is nowhere near at all where the water's run down. So it's almost certainly running up the back of here from on the roof. So I might have to take the roof lining out and have a look under there. Right, so I think I found the answer, and it was glaringly obvious all along. Water cannot be coming through that aerial because here there's like another support panel, and because the aerial's mounted on the roof, it's not on that inner panel, you wouldn't get water actually coming out here. So the obvious answer is, if we follow that panel up here, it's coming through that great big gap there, and there, and that's how the water is managing to run down the back of there and out here. Let me get another light. So if you see this big gap here, that is this panel here, which comes down there, and that is where the water's coming out. So it's not coming from the roof, it's coming from that whacking great big hole that's never been sealed from new. Right, so that's your clue. The water's in there, and if we look here, you can just see a trace of rust there where the water's been running, and then it gets down to here where there's a hole, and it runs out of the hole. So it appears that although we've got multiple points of entry, it would appear that it's these big gaps that have never been sealed in the roof, and the way the panels are folded over here, these are folded in the right direction. It's this one, this only appears to be this one here, which is folded in the direction that lets water run through there. So that is your problem. All I've got to do now is get all these sealed up, and then we'll get it painted and put it back together. Right, so that's all painted in now, and it's all been re-lacquered as well. Now I must admit, I did cheat a little bit actually. I asked a friend of mine to do the painting because he's a better painter than me. But one of my big problems is, when I start a job, it always turns into a much bigger job than it started with to start with. So let's have a look. So I had to take the bumper off to look behind it into these corners, and then I found there's a bit of surface rust on the crash bar. So I've repainted that all with Hammerite, and I thought, while the bumper's off, I might as well take the liners out, the rear wheel arches, and have a look in there. That's the rear wheel arch liners out. I've washed all them. And of course, when you come to put them in and you come to put the new bumper on, you've got to use all brand new fastenings. There's no point putting the old ones back on. So then when I got the rear liners out, I thought the shock absorbers were a bit rusty, so I put new ones of them in. And this comes from the other video you saw last time when I put the heat shrink sleeving on. But of course, when you put new shock absorbers in, you've got to use all brand new bolts as well. So these are all genuine Fiat bolts. And then of course with the liners out, I find the odd little bits of surface rust here and there, and also these little patches here, these actually come from a corrosion called white rust, which is actually some sort of, because it's galvanised steel, it goes like powdery underneath. So I've rubbed all them down. You can see under there where I've rubbed all that down, ready for painting. So this is actually the other side that's already done. So this has all been rubbed down. It's all been repainted with black amorite. Now one thing I did notice, and this is serious, there's a grommet missing from there, and that leads to water running in the sill. I'm not sure where I'm going to get one of them from yet. But we'll just leave that for a minute. So I've painted all the inside of the arch with black amorite, and while I was doing, I thought I might as well put some lanolin based wax on the rear suspension arms. And then I thought, when I'm doing all this, I might as well have the alloy wheels refurbished as well. These have all been refurbished and painted, but when the tyres off, you might as well have new tyres as well. So what actually started off as a simple water leak has turned into half a car restoration, which has actually cost quite a lot of money so far. And one last thing I forgot to say, I've also started painting the underside of the car as well with black amorite. So this is why quite often it's easier for me to go to my friend's garage and get a job done, because whenever I do something myself, it always takes far longer than if you pay somebody else to do it. And of course it would be silly to fit all these lights back in with the old bulbs, so I've got all brand new bulbs as well. So one last thing just before the end of this video, it is possible to get actually water running through this hole here if you get a bad seal, and you'll know if you've had water in there because the connectors here will be corroded. What I'm going to do just before I put it all back together, I'm going to put some non-drying silicone grease around here, and then I'm going to fit it back in the car. And the connector is actually just gone down that hole, that's just in there, but I'm going to silicone grease around there first, because that seal, this actually comes with a light. It's not available as a spare part on its own. Anyway, guys and girls, I think that's covered everything. I'm pretty confident now. That's fixed the water leak. All I've got to do is put all this back together now. So alright everybody, many thanks for watching my video, and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.